What is going on, everybody? This is SCP CRNP, aka Lack of Lepers. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our new date and time for our flagship program, SCP Meta. This will be on Sundays from now on at 12 p.m. CST. So thank you for joining. Hope you've been doing well. We will also be doing this every 2 weeks. So this weekend, we'll skip next weekend, and then back the weekend after that. All right, so we have a lot to get through today, so let me share my screen. This is a call-in show, so if you see at the bottom of the screen, if you'd like to call in, make your voice known, you can do that. The number is 316-444-3115. Again, that's 316-444-3115. We're more than happy to take your phone call, your questions, your comments, your criticisms, your topics, even your trollage. That would be fun as well. This is a live number, and then of course, if you want to, you can call us during the week and leave a voicemail. We'll be more than happy to check that out. All right, so it has been a very interesting and very busy past 2 weeks. So we got a lot to catch up with, but first and foremost, as we like to do, let's go through our local news. So to the magazine this week, we've got this nice post from Dr. Pearson. This is Statues, Weeping Angels, and SCP-173. Just a little bit of a fun little survey about statues, their role in containment fiction, how we really owe quite a lot to statues in this space, if you didn't know. And so we talk about that just a little bit. Say again?
Why are we talking about statues?
Good questions. I want to thank Dr. Krim for showing up. The reason we're talking about statues is because that is the theme for our current contest that's happening on Confic magazine right now called IndieCon, and the theme of that contest is statues. But to answer your question a little more thoroughly, the reason we have statues is because that was where the initial containment fiction articles came from. If you look at, let's see a comment here. If you look at an archive of the old 4chan where SCP-173 showed up, you start to see something funny. So basically, as people start to write more and more SCPs, every single one of them is about a statue. It's some kind of trinket, some kind of figurine, it's some kind of miniature, something of that nature. And if you see on the screen here,
yeah, because copying is like a whole bunch of things when it comes to fiction anyways.
Yeah, so that was kind of the obvious direction to go in. But if you look at this on the screen, so there's a screen cap, an archive of that 4chan thread, and someone said, I'm liking this. Maybe we can have some which aren't statues, though. like paintings or something, maybe. So at one point, the idea of deviating from statues was like novel. It was like, you know, a bold move. So, yeah, that's why we're going back to our fundamentals, and let's see what people can write. It could be anything. You don't have to make the anomaly a statue. It could be anything, as long as statue. Yeah. Say again.
Did we just start, or are we?
Oh no, we're good. We're going. Yeah. Kind of casual. You know how it is. All right.
Hey, random.
Who's this? Oh, what's up, random stranger? Thank you very much for joining today.
I might as well post these two.
Yeah, man, you like flags, man. I gotta tell you, a lot of flags. You know, interesting.
Anti-centrism.
Yeah. All right. So let's get back here. So in local news again, that's once again our magazine this week. So check that article out if you haven't. And then if you want to participate in any con, you know, feel free. The first place prize is $250. So that'll go to whoever has the most upvotes.
Oh, look at that. They left.
Oh, it's all good. Appreciate him stopping by. All right. And then so the other thing to say is the horror contest. This was something we were keeping track of on Liminal Archives. That ended, I think, at the beginning of the month. So congratulations to Almerduk, who came in first place on that. So if you haven't checked out that contest, there's some good entries in here.
He's a good guy. I'm surprised he won, though.
Oh, I'm not. Almerduk wins all the time. Yeah, Almerduk is a winner. For sure. So I wasn't surprised to see that. I haven't read the tale yet, but I'm going to probably get to that this week. So apologies, Almerduk, but congratulations on that. And to the other participants who showed up in second and third place. That's pretty cool, too. All right, and then just to kind of scan around the area, we do have some new articles from RPC, which as we mentioned a few weeks ago, kind of is becoming a rarity. But we have one from, I guess it was last week, or a couple weeks ago, RPC 638. Not sure if you've checked that one out. It seems to be doing okay. I remember reading this. I wasn't blown away, but it is what it is.
What's been going on with RPC? Why is there less stuff being posted?
That's a great question. I had asked that of Almerduck, who's more active on the RPC. I think we were talking about that 2 weeks ago, and Almerduck had some answers, had some reasons, but I really don't know the whole story. People kind of take their time when it comes to posting on the RPC. It's night and day. With SCP,
okay.
Yeah, people say, Random Stranger says people are just busy, I think, and that's true as well. The writing core at RPC is a very small group, I think, and so it's really like two extremes. I think the happy medium is somewhere between where RPC is and where SCP is, because, for example, SCP just shot out 14 articles in one day on Saturday, 14. Which, if anybody's been coming to our streams and our coverage of weekly articles, knows that that's usually the amount that you get in a week posted to the SCP Wiki in a day. So there's got to be a happy medium. Maybe RPC is a little too thin, maybe SCP is a little too thick. 2 C's, 3 C's, but there's got to be a happy medium. Random Stranger also says, plus the lore is slowly being reworked at RPC for some areas. That's true as well. So you got to think about thinking how to rewrite the old stuff and make new content. Yeah, so maybe it's in this sort of transition phase. I'm not really sure. But it certainly is on the slower side of things. Not quite as slow as SCP Commune, which we're at now on the screen. But that has a new article up as of a couple weeks ago as well. So this is one written by Scantron, Communism Will Win. And so I do recommend you check this one out. It's very interesting, as SCP
SCP Commune like the
tend to do.
Parody of SCP?
It's not really a parody. I mean, the tagline is satirize, collectivize, and politicize as a stand-in for SCP. But, it's, when you really look at it, when you get into it, I don't think they're just making fun of the SCP. This is sort of like an off-brand, because Communism Will Win, Scantron has been banned, probably an unjust ban from the SCP that hopefully one day will be overturned. I can kind of see that happening. We've had that recently with people like Kinch the Knife Blade. We've had that with Dr. Sumerian recently when it comes to contests. Obviously, we had that with Metaphysician.
Yeah, if SCP, here's the thing about SCP staff, right? If they see a benefit, they'll unban you. It's corruption at its highest, and I love it. They definitely have principles. I just don't think I agree with a lot of their principles. They're very, very principled. Like, they would never let anyone from here into their spaces, for example, even if we had something good to contribute. So it's kind of depends, I think, on the situation. But I do think at one point they'll become more sensitive to the idea of unbanning Communism Will Win. I think that'll happen. The question is what's going to happen to the commune when that happens. Is Communism Will Win still going to hang around here and sort of lead this place with all the other writers who are here? Or when that happens, will they just be happy to fold back into SCP where all the money is? Who knows? And then this one... Go ahead. No, sorry, I actually... I had to clear my throat. Something was on my throat, sorry.
No problem. And then this was something that popped up also a couple weeks ago within the last time we've met, which is this Penguin Z0, who is obviously a very popular YouTuber.
You don't know who he is? He's most critical, dude.
No, I really have never watched a single thing from this content creator. I mean, I recognize the guy. I know that he's famous. I know that he's got, I can see right now he's got 11 million subscribers. But I've never watched one piece of media from this individual, ever. What does this person do?
What does this person do? He's like a commentary YouTuber or / streamer. He will basically his favorite thing to do is basically like the React meta on Twitch. He used to be just a commentary creator, but then he actually basically what he'll do is on stream is that he'll ask people what to watch, like what videos to watch, and then he'll accept that or decline that.
Just depending on if it's against Twitch rules or not, but it's funniest shit ever sometimes because his audience comes up with all kinds of shit.
That's good, man. It's
And
good.
also, he's a speedrunner.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And
Yeah.
speedrunners, remember he speedrun Mr. Krabs overdoses on ketamine. That's a real game. He beat it in literally 2 seconds, I think.
That's a great game. It's a great premise for a game. Random Stranger said, he's the woo dude. For real, though, he's this dude with a low voice who gives his thoughts on various subjects. Well, that's cool. Sounds like a great gig to have. So anyway, the reason I brought this individual up is because a couple weeks ago they decided to look at some backrooms material. So just a lot of publicity, a lot of popularity. This video apparently went well. The person was pretty scared. So yeah, just interesting to see this kind of proliferate a lot. Just a lot of stuff that's covering the backrooms, that's interested in the backrooms. We had more like familiar content creators from the SCP space dip into backroom stuff recently. Yeah. So, that's a good question, Harmony. I don't know.
The only explanation is J-Reg, because that's the guy who came up with the idea of anti-centrism.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank Harmony for showing up. Good to see you.
Hello, Harmony. How's your Atari ST doing?
Looks like Harmony's typing today. Gonna set this up. Awesome. Okay, we'll jump on. Just kind of going through some light stuff in the immediate area, and then the last thing people might be interested in this. So SCP Pandemic, that you may know about, is a tactical shooter in the SCP universe. It's based on the SCP-5000 scenario by Tanhoney. Currently, it's in alpha. It's a really lively Twitter account that you can follow that has some great updates and just some cool stuff behind the scenes.
Hopefully, hopefully, I'm not saying that they will F it up, but I hope the community won't be like, hey, they need more LGBT or some shit, you know?
Why the fuck? What the fuck's wrong with having more LGBT representation, Trim? Why don't you explain that one to me?
Hey,
I don't know. It's just because
hit your mic
it's
up
just
a little
where
bit,
they
Harmony.
show stuff, you know?
I think you sound like you are full of shit.
Love it. Yeah, look, if they
barely hear you, by the way.
if they want to put LGBTQ colors on their game, then that's their right. That's their prerogative.
That's fine. But I'm just saying, they won't shove it in. That won't that ruins the stuff.
That is a classic homophobic dog whistle. So I'm gonna call it and say you are being a little poopy head right now, Mr. Krim.
What do you got to say for yourself, Mr. Krim?
Really? That's a dog whistle? Okay.
Absolutely a dog whistle.
I didn't know that. I'll keep that in mind.
Cool. Love it. All right, so that's Pandemic. Y'all check that out. Look, if the game's not for you, then just don't play it. I basically, I'm not into first-person shooters, but this looks like it's going to be a high-quality game. I mean, regardless of what marketing bent they take. All right, so moving on, we got a certain issue to speak of today that I think everybody knows is coming. But before we get to that, I kind of wanted to get this stuff out of the way with. Usually we do 05 towards the end of the show, but we'll go ahead and kind of just mention a few things that have been happening just to see what's up to.
It is a big mess over there.
Well, tell me about it. Yeah, what do you see? What do you see over there going on right now?
I see a big bureaucratic death spiral for big ideas that everyone wants to do, but nobody has any idea how to actually accomplish.
Sounds like this is centered on the charter rewrite. Is that right?
Or whatever that they're calling it doing now. It's threads on threads on splitting hairs and how many angels can fit on the head of a pin, and
yeah,
it's like I said, they all know that things need to change, but as soon as you get into the details of what are we actually going to do about it, and they're all like,
yeah.
Yeah, and once again, the prioritization is strange to me. It's like if you were really, really ill and you almost had a heart attack that almost killed you, and then you survived it, and so you're like, oh my gosh, that heart attack didn't kill me. But instead of working on like your cardiovascular fitness, you then go worry about how it is you're gonna like get Botox injections. Like that's kind of what this feels like to me, because we just had this giant scare with Wikidot. And even after that, it doesn't seem like anything is really like shifting around. It kind of is back to business as usual, particularly with this charter rewrite, which,
command is a thing because it's just.
I've compared it to Apple's Project Copeland in the 90s, which was a notorious piece of software development hell. Or you could also compare it to Duke Nukem Forever, where it's just people with big ideas keep chasing what they think the best possible thing is, without actually trying to build to get to get there. They just want to be there.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like fun. It's pretty brief. They just like completely like lack of planning. They just want to like, we need to make it bigger. We need to make it bigger. And it's like, oh shit! Like right when like the last minute, there's just like we forgot to put the game aspect in the game. So they just rush everything out, and people are like,
yeah, that's actually exactly what happened with Copeland. Was that everybody wanted to add their own features and be a part of this big project, and because everyone wanted to be a part of the big project, it just kept getting a bigger and bigger scope, and then it was impossible for so many elements to come together into a cohesive whole.
Yeah, and then that's something that Alm basically was talking about in the last few weeks, is that they initially approached this charter rewrite with this sort of crowdsourcing approach where like everybody on staff can say this and have input. But of course, once you do that, you don't get past your first step. There's just too much discussion. It's too much trying to map everything out when you just need to take some steps forward. So that is something nice to see. So what the charter has decided to do, this charter project, is take a shorter collection of people, and here they are here in the screen, who will basically be pushing and rewriting this thing. So it's nice to see that they've maybe cut down focus just a bit, and hopefully they'll be able to move forward with something. Although it still is up in the air and good enough to question whether or not this is actually going to benefit the site. Certainly not more than, let's say, getting on your independent platform.
why does it say chapter 1 definitions?
Yeah, and we also had one of the people who just are in that list just took a break from the site because they're so burned out that they've lost all passion for working on things. So.
Yeah, I think let's bring that up. I do have a link ready for that. I think this is what you're talking about. Is that right, Dr. Bleep?
Affirmative.
Yep. So let's check this out. So this was on the 3rd of June. Additionally, I'm quoting now. I'm reevaluating my relationship with the staff and site and or debating whether to move up aspects of the timetable I had planned for scaling back activity. This was the interesting part. Admittedly, SCP staff has been at times incredibly abusive and toxic for me in the past year and a half, especially since I became an admin. One of the newer admins, by the way, just relatively speaking. Much of this abusive behavior has originated from varying levels to varying degrees from multiple people within staff, and I have developed some trauma responses from that which I know, which I now will be evaluating during my break.
That sounds like a really horrifyingly typical SCP power staff experience.
Yeah.
That is, I can tell you so many names that would tell you this exact same story. I would tell you this almost that same story.
It's textbook. It's almost like cookie cutter exiting, in a way.
Yeah, it's cliche at this point, and it's really sad that it's cliche because it's so. It's people with such good intentions being put into this system that makes them contort those intentions to fit what it wants to do, which is ban and hurt people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it just destroys them.
Yeah, well, and then as we've seen, as you know, it takes away those parts of yourself and of the experience that initially drew you to the site. So, it's rare to see somebody.
Absolutely, it hollows you out. It destroys you as as a person. It makes being on SCP staff can make you into a bad person.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
The best we can do is tell their stories and hold those people, the staff accountable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's what we like to do here for sure.
That's the best we can do this in here.
Yeah, it's sad to see, because
Also, sorry for my heavy accent.
Oh, no problem. We enjoy that kind of.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we love that kind of flavor here, so no problem. But yeah, so it's sad to see. It's sad to see someone like Dr. Bleep leave. I mean, they had good intentions for the site, but it is almost as if the staff particularly will digest you. And what I mean by that is it kind of takes you, plugs you into itself, and then extracts all the useful things from you. And what it leaves behind is this sort of non-nutritious husk of just leftover energy that it didn't have a need for.
SCP
So,
staff,
they,
RPC thinks that SCP staff is full of pedos, and I honestly think that RPC is full of idiots, and SCP is full of hacks for admins.
Well,
and,
they've gotten rid of most of the hacks, although they do definitely have at least one big hack.
RPC stuff, but at least they're more honest than SCP staff.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that. Yeah, and
also, I will say that the SCP staff, I don't want to. They have recently been better about removing abusers, as we saw with Jackrabbit. I just don't want to let the thing of calling them all pedos. There have been pedos in them, right?
For sure.
We saw Gabriel Jade, we saw Escobar, but we should call them out specifically and not just
saw,
generalize it. We should be specific when we're talking about that. It's important.
That guy, yeah.
It's a good thing that they finally, cut the ties with them. But they protected them for a long time, so they could have done it a lot sooner.
Oh yeah, I want to. We should denounce them for the things they're guilty for, which is covering for pedophiles to protect their own reputation, more so than the pedophilia. The pedophilia itself is a bad thing that happened, and then the cover up is worse than the crime. Actually, maybe in this case, the cover up is at least quantifiably similar to being as bad as the crime.
They're so intertwined.
Like if they hate the supposed RPC detractors so much, they could have just ousted right away, and see, you're wrong. We're not actually this and that because we do punish people who do bad stuff.
Yeah, and so
they didn't do that.
Yeah, as Harmony was saying, that definitely happened recently. We'll get into Jackrabbit in just a minute here. But say what you want to about the Bright thing. I think that was handled just historically bad. And it's in the past. And there's not much you can do. Yeah, I mean they already failed that task. But the next time they were up to the plate, so to speak, with this Jackrabbit situation, I mean at least they got rid of the individual very quickly. I think the staff did everything that we had criticized them for not doing past with Bright particularly. They did very, very well with Jackrabbit. So, you got to give them that.
Actually, dumb question. Who was Jackrabbit?
Yeah, well,
before the
let's get into
the whole drama.
Yeah, so we'll get to that. Just to wrap this section up, not a whole lot going on 05. There's some Discord team stuff. They decided something about quorum, and then they're going to reorganize the staffs. This was actually nice to see. Optimistic Lucio, I think, has some good ideas for staff, and this is one of them. Just kind of cleaning things up, taking things away that don't need to be there, and kind of cleaning things up just a little bit. So this was nice to see. I think they did a good job there. But yeah, so we'll talk about Jackrabbit. So, those of us who are familiar with Jackrabbit knew that this is somebody who kind of has been around the outside space of the SCP Wiki since last year. And, a lot of people...
November of last year.
There you go, November. And mainly on Twitter, although there was at least one of these posts on our SCP where she showed up and sort of got ingratiated into the site a little bit that way too. But yeah, so Jackrabbit, we started to get these inklings from Twitter that something was going on. A couple people, like I think Jay Dune, I think Grigory Karpin had posted some kind of cryptic things that made you kind of scratch your head and go, well, what's going on here? They're talking about somebody getting away with a guerrilla campaign for social clout, and then that person ended up being, not who they said they were. So very shortly after that, this happened. So if you look on the screen, Jackrabbit basically nuked all of the social media accounts. There was a Twitter that was very active. There was a TikTok that was very active that is now no longer active as well. I think, funnily enough, the Ko-Fi is still up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, got to keep the grift going.
Yeah, just in case there's some floating sympathy out there, and somebody wants to.
There's some recurring donations that people forget to turn off.
Oh yeah.
Get some bucks out of it.
For things be punished and with sharp things. Classic internet quote.
Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, random stranger. Basically, Jackrabbit was this pretty popular, pretty influential person in this space who did a lot of cosplay, who sort of started some entrepreneurial sessions in the space. But
they use social engineering to get very big very fast.
Yeah, exactly, and it worked really well, really well. This is Jackrabbit's PayPal. This is what you would see if you clicked on the PayPal link that was to the Twitter while it was up. So yeah, she was interested in accepting money from the community. I think did that, somewhat, not a whole lot, but somewhat. So this was a hard thing to happen to the space on the heels of Dr. Bright. Just about a month later, Dr. Bright's was a long time coming, as y'all already said. Felt like more of a deep tissue injury, something that really maybe isn't as gory, as violent, as sudden to look at on the surface of things. Jackrabbit, I think, was that really injured and somewhat traumatized the community from just how violent I think this separation was. But it was pretty complete. It was pretty thorough once it happened. A lot of people were pretty shocked about who this person ended up being and how it wasn't really seen. There was a couple of us who knew. I went back and looked at the earliest point at which I had, at which I had expressed some public dissatisfaction and some criticism for Jackrabbit, and that was in February 11th of this year. And so there certainly were a lot of people who kind of felt something was off. But it took some information coming from an outside site to get where we were with Jackrabbit and to kind of understand who this person really was.
I see. So she was just, a grifter, basically.
Yeah, big grifter. Yeah, so she would do things like talk nice to people's face, have a big, friendly, pretty smile. And then just sort of eviscerate those relationships as often as possible behind the scenes, and just was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Ultimately, a lot of the things that I think,
like a snake.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Kind of like a snake. Yeah, and so the community was really taken aback by this. I mean, if you had any presence on Twitter, you understood that it was kind of the hot topic for. Most of the week, I suppose. Last week, it somewhat calmed down a little bit, but people are pretty surprised, pretty devastated that someone who they felt was trustworthy ended up being somebody who just was a completely different person behind the scenes. Sorry, go ahead. Okay. But anyway, so here's the tweet that kind of, I think, struck the tone for the rest. This is Jay Dune. It's wild how the second someone is ATH banned from the wiki, the community suddenly pretends like they've always had off vibes for that person. And that's true. That's what we saw with Dr. Bright. As soon as Dr. Bright had his anti-harassment team, people started coming out of the woodwork and basically saying, "Oh, I knew it all along.
Yeah, I totally thought that he should be banned, even though I defended him back in 2020.
Oh, really?
I'm telling you guys, I knew he was a bad person. I totally didn't defend him.
Yeah. I think most people did. Go ahead, Harmony.
It's weird to think back to cognitive dissonance, because even after he had done something to me, I was like, well, I don't know, maybe what happened to me wasn't that bad, and surely it's not as bad as people are saying. It's amazing how much you can rationalize something when everyone else is going along with it.
Yeah, a lot of social pressure. Go ahead.
That reminds me of basically Bright had a bit of a personality cult, you could say, because He was one of the OGs, you could say. So
Oh
he
yeah,
totally couldn't do anything bad.
Yeah, and that took such a long time for people to get over that. A lot of it was fear. That's something that you still see now with this Jackrabbit thing. The people who kind of felt off were afraid to say something. We actually have, explicit statements, from people like, one word and everybody would have hated me, and I couldn't lose this place. I lost, I would lose everyone I love in it most dearly. So there's just this system of leveraging that can happen with people who have bad intentions in the space, where they can hide in these spaces where you're not allowed to talk about this, you're not really allowed to criticize this person, and that is exactly what happened with Bright.
Yeah, and the worst part is, the people in charge are on the side of the insidious people, unless they're no longer convenient, in which case they immediately get rid of them.
Yeah, Bright has, as long as he had the institutional advantage of being on the inside of the system, he was protected by it.
Yeah, it's interesting to go back and look and see sort of a reel you out and then kind of cut the string kind of tactic that kind of happened. I don't know if that was entirely conscious on the staff, but that certainly is what happened. I mean, it was only after Bright was very well removed from the site. He had already sort of been dabbled with disciplinary action just a little bit, and it wasn't until he was very far away that ban finally happened. Say again?
You're gonna crash Chrome. That's way too many tabs.
Yeah, I know I will. Actually, I had this up just before the show, but actually there was the computer that crashed, so we'll see. This is what you got to do. All right. Speaking of which, yeah, we'll move on just a little bit. So this is something that we found that's kind of interesting. This is Jackrabbit in about 8 months ago when she was first around the area. This is a post to the Reddit talking about cosplay and showing a picture of her cosplaying. This is Jay Dune talking about. Say again. All right.
Oh my god, I could have
Hey,
stopped.
he plagiarized my tweet.
Where's that?
I said always the e-girls.
I made a tweet just like this, before this person did. I
I
think
just came up with that on the spot.
Twitter plagiarism.
I'm gay. It's flattery. It's good. They like it. Okay, so yeah, what was really odd to see, and what we've seen since Jackrabbit kind of exploded, is that a lot of people are removing things that are in the space. So, like for example, there's podcast episodes, there's all kind of stuff that featured this individual that was taken down very quickly. Some cases, quicker than others. And so, it's interesting to me to see that. I think a lot of people obviously are justified in wanting to do something like that, taking somebody like that away. There's a little bit of overlap with the discussion of that leftover character of Jack Bright, what to do with that character, which has been a topic of discussion, I think.
Just rewrite it. If you want to associate yourself with Bright, just rewrite it.
Yeah, I think Lucio actually had a really good tweet about this recently, probably today. But yeah, so there was a lot of question about after Dr. Bright was banned as to what to do with this kind of vestigial figure who is asymmetrically loved, when it comes to the actual person. And this is what Lucio says recently regarding the character Bright. You guys ought to realize that whatever the authors do, Bright will live on in the offsite as long as he's the designated funny, chaotic chainsaw dude. Instead of ripping the candy from the baby's hands, offer it a different toy.
They could totally do this with the Neo Law Foundation that's going on right now. That's in vogue.
Oh yeah.
Now is the time to come up with a new weapon.
Wait, what?
Silly guy.
Now's the time.
The Law Foundation is
Neo Law Foundation is the style that's popular right now.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Ah,
Yeah, it's back.
Nice.
It's back. Self-inserts, plinky dialogue, making the foundation dumb for the sake of delivering jokes.
I sure have missed quirky foundation.
Yeah, well, it's
I'm
back, baby.
sure am glad that it's back.
It's back,
Oh, yeah,
bigger
me too.
than ever, man.
Wake me up when we get to Neo Grimdark Foundation. I want to go back there. That was fun.
So,
I mean,
go
that's
ahead.
like, Now it seems like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, you know, either the funny haha quirkies or like Warhammer 40k tier, but worse.
I love shit that gets that dark and stupid. It's so when you can't take it a little bit seriously, but it's still taking itself so seriously. That's chef's kiss perfect.
Yeah, still
I
some
mean,
good
it
stuff.
is, but like, you know, when it, I mean, when it's a bit better than like the funny haha quirky stuff, because like when the comedy is bad, you know, it's just, you know, annoying. You can't really laugh at it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's self-serious and it's bad, then it's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
almost
yeah, I get what you
it's
mean.
almost like The Room, you know, like it's being bad while
What do
being
you mean?
serious.
The Room is a masterpiece.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
what are you
is.
talking about? The Room is cinematic perfection. I don't know what you're insinuating about
It's
it.
one of the movies ever made.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolute all-time classic. It's
Yeah.
a Citizen Kane of the 21st century.
You know, if someone were to go up to me and ask if I would, how would I would I rate movie The Room from 1 to 10? I would rate it.
What would you rate it?
What would you rate
I
it?
would rate it, you know, because it's one of the movies that were created.
Would you rate it a 10, you think, or what?
I would rate it.
You'd
Oh
rate
my
it.
God.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough.
Jackrabbit only
No.
has one capture.
Some people wouldn't rate it at all.
Only
so
has
that's,
one capture.
that's pretty
Right
good.
back machine.
You know, but for real though, you know, I would like go back to the time when I didn't know about The Room, so that I could watch it again.
Mhm. Yeah.
Timeless experience.
Yeah, it's really a surreal thing when you first get it. Nothing like that.
I want to experience the time that I watched The Room for the first time ever. Like, it was magical.
I will
Yeah.
say it's not the most surreal movie that I've ever seen. The most surreal movie that I've ever seen was a pigeon sat upon a tree branch contemplating life.
Wow. A pigeon sat upon a tree branch contemplating
Life, yes.
life. I think I spelled pigeon wrong. No big deal. Wow, look at this. There it is.
There it is. Reflecting on existence or whatever it's called.
Look at that.
It is super, super fucking weird. It's really, really good.
See, Roy Anderson. What language is this initially in?
I think it's in Dutch.
Dutch. Okay. Interesting. Well, look at there. Maybe this is like the new House of Leaves or something. the space.
What a highly specific title.
It's in that sphere. It's definitely in that sphere. It is. Whew.
I can't remember the name of this movie, but there's a recent Nicolas Cage movie that he's in that's just absolutely crazy. It's like a one name.
I mean,
Oh, there it is. There it is.
it has Nicolas Cage. What do you expect?
Prisoners of the Ghostland is probably the most surreal movie I've ever seen. That's a really, really good movie. Check it out.
I want to see that.
Yeah, real good. Nicolas Cage actually does a fantastic job. He sort of exceeded his own, threshold of absurdity, and it's almost like The Room. Like he just gets so bad that it's
Nicolas
good.
Cage,
Yeah, exactly.
in anything that has Nicolas Cage in it,
Yeah.
it's gonna be good.
I'd rate
yeah.
that. That's what I do. I just rate the video.
I'd rate it.
Yeah,
I'd rate it.
too.
I would rate it.
All right.
I'd rate it. Absolutely.
I would rate it too. It's rateable. Totally rateable. And so I wanted to bring
It is quantifiable.
a couple more things about Jackrabbit. Is that she did this very interesting thing. Now we had sort of a post-mortem that was posted to my blog that'll probably be posted to the magazine this week in a altered form. Yeah. But it kind of goes into the how this happened. And one of the things that we saw that was really strange is that Jackrabbit sort of couched all of the red flags into a character. Her primary persona was this character. And so look at the screen, we have a capture of a tweet that says, this person really gets it. And this person is talking about the character of Jackrabbit that says her vibes are rancid. And there was this clever little play, this clever little trick that Jackrabbit had done, which is to sort of meta-ize all of the red flags as someone who was intentionally doing that for the purposes of a character. When we found out, unfortunately, in reality, it seems as though they were more reflective of the person behind the character.
Oh,
Brilliant
so
way to. That's a brilliant way to hide.
like a clever way to avoid criticism.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it basically is
So
a
you
lightning
lean
rod.
you lean into it.
Like you pick out the tweet that criticizes you, and then you claim that wow, they're the true fan. They totally get the persona. Wow,
Mhm.
10 out of
Yeah.
10.
It's being completely self-aware and leaning into the things that make you shitty to avoid them being detected as actual traits.
Yeah,
That's
and
insidious.
well, the thing about it is that it's so
What a nice tactic.
yeah. If you go back and listen, like I said, a lot of people, I think the Yurtcast has taken down their episode with Jackrabbit. I've seen a tweet from Sean Saxon that says Sean's videos and podcasts that feature Jackrabbit will be taken down. And so, I get that. Once again, it goes kind of back to what to do with this leftover character of Dr. Bright. I understand the want and the need to take down things that this individual appeared in. So, for example, on the screen, this was an SCP-721-EX that was on the site that was really all about Jackrabbit. Obviously, there was more going on, but as you can see from the image here, that's basically what it was about. And because of that fact, once this sort of revelation with Jackrabbit happened, this article has been taken down from the wiki as well, because it was just so central to this article. And my only thing to say about that is that I'm not advocating people keep up material that feature Jackrabbit. Obviously, I think that's someone's personal decision and has some good thoughts behind it. But the one thing that you rob yourself from when you go back and sort of erase everything that had to do with this person is you miss the opportunity to go back and see just how the person was able to do that and also how well they did that. So Harmony, you were saying just what an insidious way to kind of hide and mask yourself. Going back and listening to something like Sean Saxon's interview with this individual Jackrabbit on Authors Anomalous. I mean, if you listen to the things that are said and couple that with the understanding of where those statements came from that no one knew where their origin point was, it's really freaky to listen to.
Well, hey there, you cute cadets. It's me, Agent Jackrabbit. I asked the SCP author community over on Twitter to list
Yeah, I mean, things like that. Like,
one of their articles that they've written and try and describe it as poorly as possible in a
oh, sorry.
I hate her delivery. It's so. It's so. She's doing what she's doing on purpose. It's so polished. Mm-hmm. It's all so on purpose.
Yeah, it really is very
like
calculated.
The voice seems, like very artificial.
Mm-hmm. Very calculaed. And so
and I don't know.
Also, I found her.
But I feel like
hear her voice so much. It reminds me of a squealing dog.
I feel like the voice is, it has like this aura of condescension.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, so if you listen to this video, it starts out with a catchphrase, which is "cute cadets," and it's just hilarious to me because the TikTok of Jackie is down, but if you go to TikTok and you search like a tag for Jackrabbit, you can still see everybody else's TikToks that have Jackrabbit in them. And so this right here is just a pretty interesting moment where this influencer over here is featuring Jackrabbit, and it doesn't really see Jackrabbit. She's doing this character, she's doing this thing. We all know that this is not a character, that it's really just a very thinly applied veneer of makeup over what is a lot uglier of a personality. But this kind of stuff happened. I mean, these people had no clue, and it's important to go back and try to figure out why that is and what happened. And if you take away all the things that existed, you don't really. It's like an immune system that sees a bacteria but decides not to remember it. It's probably not a good idea. So it looks like Harmony says that you found. This is her. What is this?
It looks like I thought it was her Tumblr, but it's a mirror of her Tumblr.
Oh, okay.
Account.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, these things need to be understood. How this happened. I'll tell you one thing also about Jackrabbit. That's going to be a little controversial of a statement, I think. But in going back and sort of reviewing this individual and reviewing what this person did on the wiki and things like that, and going back and appreciating the red flags that were really there all along. One thing that I think that I noticed.
Oh my god, the fucking ads.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get out of there. I accidentally clicked on one too. Yeah, one thing that I think was at least one of the reasons why so many people were duped is because there was something genuine about Jackrabbit. And if you go in back and read her article that she posted to the SCP Wiki that's called Toxic Positivity, I mean, it's a really ugly character that's presented in that, but it's a really genuine representation of who Jackrabbit actually is. So, I think one of the things that got so many people fooled is that I think Jackrabbit actually liked SCP, quite a lot. The timeline would tell us that she was sort of watching SCP for like 2 years before, sort of it came out who she was. But that's just the sad part of it, is this is the story of somebody who found something that they loved, that they really liked, that they were really passionate about. I don't know if anybody got a chance to listen to Simply Creative People episode 1, but she was neck deep into sarcasm and the lore. I mean, she knew that stuff really, really well. She had a passion for this stuff, but it's just sad to see what can happen when it's the wrong character, the wrong kind of personality that gets hold of something nice. But yeah,
Which I would say,
here's
stop
another one.
watching my videos, Dr. Clef. You give me the creep.
Yeah, so she was big on saying that other people gave her the creeps, including us in this Discord. But
People
anyway,
gave her the
That was
creeps.
a
Are
slogan
you
that
sure
she
about
used.
that?
Wow.
yeah, she was creeped out by us. She thought that we were horrible people that everyone should stay away from.
Well, of course, she thought that we were horrible people because we would call her out.
Exactly. Yeah, and so this is I think the
That
ultimate
that
thing.
sure that might be really scary. Knowing that someone could like tear you down at any moment.
Yeah. Well, that's I think one of the weaknesses of the SCP Wiki. Any community can have a problematic person like this pop up.
Of course,
you can't control who shows up where, right? And so there's nothing really, I think, innate about the SCP that brings these people in, but it's just that once they're there, the community has unfortunately taken away its means of addressing these things. So that's a really good point. I mean, the way I would see it is that at the SCP, particularly those spaces that they control and sort of police, for political correctness and things you can say and things you can't say, I think the ultimate effect of that is you're not free in thinking. And so you're not allowed to really think certain ways, let's say, about certain people. You maybe want to. That's something we see a lot of. There's a lot of emotional turmoil, I think, in a lot of people at the Wiki, in the community for the SCP Wiki, who see these things and they want to say something. They feel like something is off with Bright or with Jackrabbit, but it's almost like they're not free to say it.
Well,
there's definitely
because like the quote unquote special people who are protected by the clique, you could say.
Yeah, Harmony, what were you going to say?
So when you do call them out, clique says no, you can't do that. You're the bad meanie one, so you go get banned.
Yeah, there's definitely a chilling effect where sometimes politeness and catering people's feelings, while it is important and it is a good thing to take into account that the things that you say and the community that you cultivate will have an effect on the people who participate in it.
Yeah, sure, of course, but you shouldn't overdo it.
Yeah, well, there's a difference between making it so that you don't use slurs quite as much to actively looking for ways to frame things as homophobic or transphobic, which is you're making new enemies where there aren't any to justify your policing of your own selves, while meanwhile actual damaging homophobia is still present in your community and can still damage your members, and you're not actually taking meaningful steps to address it. You're just kind of letting it happen in the background while you're off pretending that you're making a difference when you're not actually doing anything. You're just talking, and you're not even talking about the right thing.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, is pretending.
Those people just want the clout. They don't want to actually, fix anything.
Yeah, and that's certainly what we saw with Jackrabbit. This is somebody who was very hungry for attention, for social power. I want to thank you and welcome Coupon, and also our main man, Dr. Firm. What's up?
Hi, Furnace.
And yeah, so it's a great way to put it. What y'all just said was that pretend. I mean, it's not this way. It's not true that people at the SCP would rather have fake people, smiling at them, and then people who will stab them in the back when they're not looking. It's not that they prefer those people to someone like someone here who's a little more honest, a little more unafraid to say what they think, a little more abrasive by the same token. But it's just that they've robbed themselves I think, intellectual technologies to call those things out and address it. So you have somebody like Jackrabbit who, because there's such a staunch social pressure to say the right things, to throw up the right banners, to have the right beliefs, it makes it all the easier for somebody just to come in and grift off of those superficial things. They're able to pretend their way into the community. It's not unlike somebody, cozying up with a let's call it a church community who, kind of dupes the church because they walk in and they have a big cross on their necklace and they're carrying a Bible. That's basically what happened with Jackrabbit.
Yeah, and you're volunteering all the time. You're doing all these different things. It's like, wow, you must be good because we're all serving this good cause and you're serving it just as much, but you're just in it for the power, man.
Yeah.
And to get something out of it, whether that's power, whether that's whatever else you might be wanting to get out of it.
And so, it's important to have an identity banner, to have things that your place champions, but you don't want to do it so much and so blindly and so, almost religiously that you forget to evaluate the person who is saying those things. And, someone who doesn't say those things or have those beliefs that you have still might be preferable. Like, for example, I'm an asshole, right? But I think a lot of people would prefer to be talked to by an asshole than somebody who's just completely fake friend and will stab you in the back when you turn around. It's not.
Because like an asshole at least is honest about it, but like a fake person will like. You don't know how to react to a fake person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
it's easy for a fake person like Jackrabbit to worm their way into a community like SCP where everyone's already walking on eggshells and policing themselves so much.
Right.
And that's just it's counterproductive because it's like you have to inoculate people to a disease. Like there's a certain amount of exposure to things in your community that you don't need to worry about. You should help people out when there's help, but also you should let people work things out for themselves sometimes, because if you don't let a little bit of that real world into your community, you turn it into a bubble, and if your community is a bubble, then you're not going. You can't grow. You're trapped in your little space in these walls you've put up yourself.
Yeah, and it really promotes sort of a lackeyism where we're just saying the right thing or kind of posturing in the right way. Basically gets you through the door, as opposed to somebody who is a genuine person but maybe doesn't see things exactly the way that you see them. I want to welcome Soraya Stuff. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. And in response to the community's shock, we had a lot of these. This is something called Twit Longer, just a way for people to post longer things. This is probably the best of them. There were several posted, one by Emotional Entropy, another by Dr. Cerisi, which was sort of like Jackrabbit's main partner in the space creatively, and Grigori Karpin was another. All of them are really interesting to read. They give you sort of a behind the scenes, but this one from Grigori Karpin is just absolutely heartbreaking. I don't know if you've read this, but just to see all the things that we've been talking about, this sort of like saying the right thing, buddying up with the right people. This is a story about how someone was able to do that in a nefarious way, to the extent of taking a loved person in the SCP community and somewhat marginalizing them, for a time. So it's just a really horrible thing to watch happen, and it's a horrible thing to see a place where this can happen. Like I said, it can happen anywhere, but I can guarantee you Jackrabbit's not coming into the Society for Containment Fiction Discord trying to pull something she pulled at SCP, because it wouldn't work. We'd be able to call her out immediately.
Yeah, they've put up these limitations on how you can talk about. People can talk about one another, and it's hard to. It's like we had someone from SCP who I'm not going to name because I don't remember exactly what they said. I don't want to mischaracterize them, but who was saying something about how we said something, had supposedly said something about Jackie and characterizing as being sexist or because of, or like making light of her because we're saying, oh, she's. I think that the exact phrasing was a bimbo, and then it turned out that the first use of the term bimbo in the entire server was them saying that we'd said it.
Right.
But that became it immediately becomes the cudgel. Like if you're criticizing someone, it must just be because you are attacking their identity, not because you're actually criticizing them.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Like
with
it's not transphobic. Just because I'm a transphobe, I'm not a transphobe. Just because I am transgender doesn't mean it's transphobic.
Right.
To criticize me when I do something stupid or wrong.
Exactly. And so the really horrible thing about couching all of those observations and diverting them into there's no way you can win this argument direction of it being, something like transphobia or sexism or misogyny or something like that, is that's what I'm talking about. You really prevent yourself from thinking. It's not a place of free thought. You're not really allowed to think that way. For those reasons. And time again, we saw people with Bright. We're now seeing people with Jackrabbit who say, I knew something was wrong, but I was just terrified to say anything because I thought I'd lose all my friends.
Yeah, you have to walk this narrow. Yeah, if you're trying to walk the narrow path of virtue and you get depersoned if you fall off of it, that leads to a culture of fear. You're afraid if you say or do the wrong thing, you're gonna lose out on all your social standing, and it's, you can say, oh, you're just afraid you'll lose clout, but these are everyone's friends here. This is your community. For some people, I'm sure that this is the only community that they really have.
It doesn't even mean you have to defend transphobia. It just means you have to have a different attitude toward it, being less hostile.
Less hostile, just less. You don't treat it like you don't treat it like it's aggressive cancer. You can treat it like it's a flu. You don't need to go to chemotherapy every time immediately.
Yeah. Thanks for showing up, Almerdug. Good to see you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So, one of the things that has happened that I'm not sure people know is that.
Congratulations on winning a horror con.
What was that, Krim?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, the horror cut. Yeah, we had. Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, we had shouted you out a little earlier in the show, Almerdug, for your win.
I have no clue how I won that. Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, I have an idea of how you won that.
I didn't shout
really
you out
good.
this. I'll say, yay, good job.
Yeah, congratulations. That was cool. So SCP Sideshow was basically Jackrabbit's main sort of entrepreneurial effort, and it was actually something that I think a lot of people was very excited about. One of the most recent things that happened was that Dr. Gears got on board, which is really, really cool. So, I mean, this was something that as one pseudo-entrepreneur to another, I couldn't help but sort of respect the grind of. And so SCP Sideshow sort of was up in the air after all this happened, but they have made official statements saying that they're going to continue. They have enough, momentum behind them, I think, to move on without that person. So, just good news that they'll be around and hopefully still producing content.
Yeah, just gotta wish them the best after that. There's how do you recover from one of your core people turning out to be a grifter, but they feel like they can continue going on. I hope that they have great success.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really unique project. Very cool. So, I mean, I guess we have to compliment, the initiative in that. So there's a compliment for Jackrabbit there somewhere, I'm sure. But once again, if you go back and read these twit-longers, you kind of get a behind-the-scene glimpse at what was going on. There's one that was released by The Sherm as well, who I do want to take a moment just to kind of shout out and respect, because this is The Sherm kind of getting a little honest with how they handled the situation, and just a little bit of honesty and regret and mature apology to Grigory Karpin when it came to them kind of taking the side of Jackrabbit without really analyzing, I think, the situation enough. But some real awful things happened. So, for example, this individual, Emotional Entropy, who I think is heading the SCP Sideshow, community manager for the Sideshow, there it is, had sent Jackrabbit a really nice painting. This is it, of Red Reality. This is something that, if you read their account, they bonded over really in the early days of their correspondence. And this is a tweet from them. Even though I'm shattered to pieces to have learned, my painting has been torn to pieces. this won't stop me from creating. So I mean, it's just sad to hear that apparently Jackrabbit ripped up this nice painting after all this happened. So I mean, if there was any if there's any moment for graciousness and some sort of humility and like, wow, I did something wrong. No, we got a nice piece of art torn the hell up instead. So
iconoclasm in SCP again.
Yeah. And then this was an unfortunate thing to see. Rounder House, also DJ Cactus, I think, shouted this out just to kind of help a person out. But there's a person in the space called Jackie, who's not Agent Jackrabbit. And the same thing happened with Bright. There's a TikToker by the name of Dr. Bright who got, a lot of flack, a lot of hate mail, a lot of criticisms. This person, Jackie, says, I would really appreciate if someone who's bigger in the community could say I'm not Jackrabbit. I've received 3 different DMs from spam accounts telling me to kill myself just because my Twitter handle has Jackie and SCP. So, a lot of people...
Those who are listening, whoever just spammed whoever this person is, you need to kill yourself as well. If you're gonna really like tell people without any evidence, without anything, you just blindly go after someone because they have someone similar named to. Stop it.
Yeah, so that was kind of the message.
No matter what, just don't tell people to kill themselves.
Yeah, probably not
just
a good idea.
Don't do it.
Yeah, probably not a good move. Yeah, it's just sad to see though, because I mean, it's just sad to think that there are people in the space who will do that kind of thing. I think that me and Harmony saw that somewhat when we were on our Curious Cats. That was a lot more flippant. It wasn't quite serious. But there are a lot of people in the space who will have no problems, kind of perpetuating some ugly things in the name of, telling off a community villain. Yeah, Soraya Stuff says people do a lot with anonymity. That's 100% the case. So, but in other news, so the Other Worlds TV basically did the same thing. This is the pseudo, it's kind of a Roku-based TV show, kind of a TV station kind of thing. They did away with Sideshow just as a gesture. I think they'll probably be back on that too. Yeah, Soraya Stuff says, as long as you can hide your name with a handle, people will become able to do anything. Yeah, even fool a whole community. Just say the right things, and you've done it.
This reminds me of what happened with Ackman's brother. Like some psycho from Ackman's community went into Quantum TV's video where because Quantum TV's a psycho, but he.
You're talking about names of people that I have absolutely no context for what on earth you are talking about, my friend.
Oh, but anyway, it's basically this person doxed, and one of the fan base decided to contact his family because why not? It's stupid, and I hate it.
Well,
that sounds very silly.
Yeah, a lot of silly
wacky,
stuff.
Wild times over there.
Yeah, can't compete with us though. We got some crazy stuff going on all the time. That's really why we do this. It's fun to talk about. But this is something I don't know if you saw it. This happened in the last week of Twitter. So at some point, Oh, go ahead. What?
I just said that this was fucking hilarious.
This is crazy. So y'all know Radiger. Radiger's I think on staff, author of the SCP Wiki, and then sort of a content creator who's comedic and usually pretty funny. But
their video about kidnapping SCP content creators is very funny.
That is pretty funny. A lot of good stuff. If you don't know, Radiger is somebody who does a good job producing things in this space. And one of the things they do is doodle. They have very charming sort of cartoon work. And at one point, Radiger decided to take some sort of, I guess, requests for doodles. And so out of that came this, which was this little guy. It's like a little, almost like a Metroid alien or something like that, and it's called The Criminal.
Yeah, I don't. Sketch, then people got banned for it for whatever reason that no one knows.
Yeah, so for some reason, this was like Twitter's over-censorious algorithm kind of going haywire. But basically, when you posted this doodle, I guess because it looks kind of like something, I don't know, it triggered an algorithm that banned people for 24 hours. So this kind of proliferated all throughout the Twitter sphere with SCP. You had people kind of get their accounts locked. Everybody was having a good time posting it and then getting banned for 24 hours. If we're to believe Radiger here, it says 21 plus people banned for putting this image on their Twitter accounts.
Absolutely, that's actually incredible.
Yeah, and so they went really mimetic with this thing. So here's Dododevil, who's an author that I like, become ungovernable, and this is upside down. So beware the meta info hazards of this thing. So the criminal is what it's called, and this was something that was homegrown to the SCP space. It came out of that, and I think Radiger has posted a YouTube video about this now. So just check the Twitter. They do a really nice synopsis. But this was just a really wild thing to see happen.
It was actually whack and wild, but for real, and not a euphemism.
And I think they've solved the problem now. You can
hazards for algorithms.
Yeah, it got it.
I saw someone post it who was disappointed they didn't get banned. They're like, oh, what the heck? I didn't get the criminal experience.
It's like a badge. Yeah, pretty cool. So I think it's been fixed. Don't know how. Don't know why. But anyway, so that was something that I thought was pretty funny to bring up. Just you never know what's going to happen next. And then so we'll end things today. It's been about an hour. I want to kind of go off on a little lighter of a note. Not lighter, but just a little more serious of a note, rather, with some good things that people have said in this space. So this is Dr. Cerisi, and it says, for the love of 343, don't make yourself closed off against compliments and positivity because one singular person decided to be vindictive. And the lesson of this is that people in the SCP space particularly, but I think all of us, because we're all human and we're all creative people who are doing this paradoxical thing of releasing this very intimate product, this whatever it is that we've written, into this very callous, bustling market of consumption that is not going to care the same for what we put out there. And so a lot of people really like to hear praise. I mean, that's a motivating factor for a lot. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's a very important lesson in here, in that Jackrabbit was able to poison the community through compliments, through flattery, through praise. And so, there's a message there where if you let yourself be swayed, if you really put a lot of stock into other people's praising you, that's going to be a great weakness for you. It can be leveraged, it can be exploited, it can be taken advantage of. And to quote somebody who I'm a fan of in their leadership, flattery like that is rat poison. It's just as bad as a criticism. In fact, it can be a little more damaging than a criticism. So this was just a great point by Nikki. We should be complimenting people. We shouldn't kind of like shy away from that. But on the receiving end of it, a compliment or a criticism should always be icing on the cake. It shouldn't be making that big of a difference, I think. And Dr. Fern says, then I have the capacity to be a great villain. Yeah, but you're a genuine person. You're a pastor, for crying out loud. Kidding. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, so this is Dr. Sumerian, who we like here, I think, pretty well. And congratulations, by the way, to Dr. Sumerian for being able to participate in contests again.
Yes, good for him.
Yeah, that's kind of a long time coming, I think. So he says, to lay some speculation to rest, all the money has been paid out to Corgo from the fundraiser, which is no longer taking donations. He just wanted people to know that the math is checked out and that he has seen the math check out. So the statement here, please don't damage the community's ability to fundraise in the future with baseless speculation. I don't know exactly what that baseless speculation was. SCP Sideshow had come into our Discord and told us that there was a discrepancy. It seemed that there was a discrepancy with how much money was donated and how much was given to Corgo. So I don't know if it could be called baseless or speculation, but in response to this is a great point. We shouldn't let the idea of somebody potentially rug pulling and exploiting donations stop us from doing projects that cost money in the space. But I think we had said something in response to this that basically takes the idea, and this is really the bigger thing that I'm trying to pull out of this, is that it shouldn't get to the point where we have to have somebody check the math. It shouldn't take the point of an intermediary to step in and tell us, oh, okay, yeah, all the money is there. There should be some sort of transparency. There should be some sort of accountability when it comes to funds. This has been a problem for a very long time. People like Alana were trying to call this out in 2014 regarding the pro account on the SCP Wiki. Alana was right. and it really hasn't been looked at. Nobody really sees the need to have in place any sort of chain of custody or accountable stewardship of funds. And this was a near miss. I mean, Jackrabbit could have easily taken the money and run. I think she probably thought about it, once or twice. So, this is a near miss. But the proper reaction to this isn't that, oh, okay, hey, we dodged a bullet. It's, hey, let's get to the point where we don't have to dodge bullets.
I'm with you. I agree. Also, Sari wanted to squeeze something in here. I think here at the end they're talking about there was a scandal in backrooms.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So sorry, I didn't see this. Sarai stuff says, is Confic call-in open to any?
I didn't interrupt because you're on a good roll there. I didn't
want
to interrupt you, but that's one thing we got here.
Yeah. To answer your question, Sarai, absolutely. Yeah, this is a call-in show, so anything you want to bring up, particularly about the space, definitely is welcome. Yeah. Dr. Fern would rather stop getting shot at, and I agree. Yeah.
Not getting shot at is a plus. I will say there's one thing I know that's been happening in Backrooms tech support, which is that 1,000 Dumplings, 1KD, did their own version of Death of the Author, where they gave up all their stuff. But this time, instead of changing the rules on the fly, the rules that were already extant allowed the Backroom staff to be like, okay, but if we delete all your stuff, it can just be rewritten. And 1KD was like, okay, dude, it's kind of like 1K. They let 1KD know in advance that this was going to be the score before, and gave them the opportunity not to do it. Then 1KD was like, no, fuck you, delete my stuff. So
yeah,
it's kind of a similar but different version of the situation. Let's see, did Saria finish laying out what they are talking about here?
Not yet. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it really is sort of, it's so amazing to see basically the back rooms almost speed run all the things that the SCP Wiki has sort of gotten itself into in the last few years. And it's almost like just
they're putting a little stank on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little different, but it's so much that's in common with it. I mean, they had their own political split that gave rise to liminal archives, if I understand that correctly. And now this, where basically somebody, they don't give the author sovereignty where, morally it probably should be.
Well, history moves at the speed of information, so the fact that we're living in SCP formed in the aughts when there wasn't nearly the internet communication density that we see now, so it makes perfect sense that it's happening. It's like SCP, but it's all happening like the Cliff's Notes version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. The kind of, it's almost like an embryological evolution where you go through those previous stages that previously took like millions of years to evolve through. And in something like a fetus developing, it gets through all that in maybe a couple of weeks' time. Sariah's stuff says the first issue, we're talking about tech support, which is Backrooms. The first issue with the Greenlight exemption, happened. We found out that someone who's been writing a whole bunch of stuff got poorly received, hasn't been getting critique. They recently got kicked for that, abusing the system and harassment. Some talk of whether the exemption is a good idea has risen up again now, and restrictions may be put back up soon. Yeah, what is this Greenlight exemption?
I'm gonna presume while they're telling us that it means that it's like the SCP greenlighting process, the process for getting stuff approved. There must be an exemption if you've done something or got something or have meet some existing criteria, and this person's just been running through that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, authors with 3 articles don't need green lights. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So basically, somebody was cheating on the crit. Is that right? Skimming on the crit.
Did they not get the criticism at all that they needed to get for their things, and then were once they fraudulently had 3 articles, they were just running wild, or what's the dealio here? Because it's interesting. It's interesting to see any Confic community get their procedures messed with, like when Sumerian got banned for contests, how he really wasn't breaking any rules. They just kind of banned him as a statement of like, don't everyone ever do this again.
Right. This is crazy. We didn't think it was possible, but here it is. Yeah. So counterfeit crit, huh? That's what's going on. Counterfeit crit. Somebody.
Counterfeit crit. I love that. That's actually. Ooh, that's got some spring in its step. That's a phrase with loaded dice. You got to write that one down.
Hey, I'll put it somewhere. I'll find a place for it.
You got to write that one down.
Yeah, that's got legs, huh?
Yeah, counterfeit crit. That's good. That's spicy. That's got some stank on it for sure.
Soraya says they cited not trusting crits, not even counterfeit crit, just rejecting it entirely, even in discussion. If someone critiqued them, they'd ask them not to. Jeez, dude, that's crazy. Yeah, we see that a lot, really, on, I guess, on backrooms too. But it's been something we've talked a lot about with SCP. People just like saying, I don't accept your crit. I don't accept the idea of being, criticized. Just take that somewhere else, please. And then Coupon just said RPC just raised its age limit to 18 years old. That's awesome. Grandfathering in current users. Well, that's probably a good idea. That's hard to do, and has its downsides.
But there's always going to be compromises when you're moving up when you weren't before.
Yeah. Well, that's bold and not easy to do. There's a lot of logistical challenges in there, and then of course you do have to worry about something that SCP has sort of caught themselves in after raising their age limit to 18, which is, are you essentially criminalizing people who are going to be in the space anyway, and who don't have as many pathways to voice some of these things that can happen in these sites early on and take care of it proactively. That's always a difficult thing to work around, but so but the 18-year-old thing is certainly, it's a good idea, I think. So kudos to RPC.
Especially if you're in a large community like SCP or RPC, that you really can't know everybody in it. So sometimes you don't know everyone, you gotta put up something to keep people out. You
got to compensate. You got to make the difficulty adjustment. Coupon says this is not. This is for the main Discord where most of the community is, not this site. Okay, cool. Yeah. So you should have.
It's basically for this site. I mean, no one in the Discord. There's very, very few people who are. I don't think anybody that just uses the RPC wiki and isn't also on the Discord in terms of actually using it.
Right. Yeah, and of course, Discord is just a little more participatory, a little more like, people are a little more proximal, a lot of proximity going on there. So it might be a good space to put the 18 limit there too. So, all right, well, y'all, I really, Almer, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I'm not entirely happy with this decision. I voted against it because I feel like we're going to lose a lot more than we are going to gain. Because we're going to get underagers anyway. This is going to happen regardless. This is we have discussed it at length with the CP age change, and I think we've more or less agreed that it's going to be ineffective for what it intends to do. The only thing that it's going to effectively do is lift responsibility from staff from whatever happens to minors who come to the site. I think we're going to lose a lot because most of our best contributors started out being minors and writing as minors. Veslogs, for example, Dexo, who goes by Minuteman on the site. I think Tarbolin, I don't know. I also, there's no easy way to put it, but the lower server and the site, people don't check that. They don't check that as much as the Discord. I can only count myself and Von Pincier, someone who reads the site forums consistently. And I don't know what we're going to do about it, but if we don't do anything to ensure that there's at least a minor sense of community over there, we're going to lose even more.
Yeah, well, these are tough decisions for sure, and arguments good on both sides of it. So we'll be watching RPC. It'll be interesting to see what y'all do. We do have the benefit of SCP going ahead and kind of taking these on before everybody else. So there's a lot to learn there.
SCP does so many things. It's so nice when other communities do things. It's nice to not have to talk about SCP all the time.
Well, I think it's, I honestly think, there's plenty here to talk about. I mean, that's one of the things I love about this space is that, containment is bigger than SCP. It really is, Nobody should have a monopoly on the genre. I mean, anybody can write in this genre.
Yeah,
question.
It's a nice reminder that this really is such a vibrant, large community where there's stuff happening all over, and there's stuff happening all over outside of where it's happening all over.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just...
go ahead.
Do like Confic inspired projects count as, part of the genre, or are they their own thing?
Yeah.
Someone can have like horror aesthetics without being a horror movie per se. If it's borrowing part of the aesthetic.
I mean, for example, aesthetic with anomalies, but there's no containment, for instance.
Well,
or there are no central point of view organization that does the containing. Could that still be considered part of the config?
Yeah, I think so. So, one of the things that we try to promote here is independent config. So, that's really a kind of an unofficial umbrella term that captures a lot of different stuff. So, you have different containment fiction sites, but also like limb fiction.
Part of a very small website that tries to distance itself from the config genre, but has its roots there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and limfic is kind of that way. Yeah, so limfic.
Not limfic either, but
yeah,
but
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things about this is that we do appreciate and like to celebrate and respect different takes on the space. So that's one of the things we're trying to celebrate with the IndieCon. So if anybody has their own format that they like to write in that kind of takes one of those angles, hopefully this sort of platform can be a hub for all those alternative varieties of the genre. So, well, all right. I want to thank everybody for showing up. We had a great crew today, so I appreciate all the interaction. This is obviously a lot more fun with y'all hanging out. So I hope y'all can do it again. We do this every other Sunday now, so the new time is Sunday at 12 p.m. CST. We go for about an hour and a half, something like that. Just whatever y'all want to talk about. This is a call-in show. We can participate in the Discord, as most people have been doing. We also have a Twitch that we go on for live, and we do have a nice little phone number, 316-444-3115. You can call live.
Which has now officially been called.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of trollage, but we'll take it. We'll take it. So you can also leave a voicemail if we're not live, and we'll check that out when we finally are. So really appreciate it. Thank you all again. Thank you everybody who came. Alma Duck, Coupon, Dr. Fern, Harmony, Random Stranger, Soraya Stuff, probably some others in there. Krim, who I think is left by now, but really appreciate it. Great discussion. So hopefully to see you here in about 2 weeks, and have a great few weeks until then. Thanks.
Always a pleasure.